A very good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are joining from. Thank you so much for giving us your time today and joining the FTP program. Mrs. Dimutu, please, I request you to start with the welcome note. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisha. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, distinguished dignitaries, and valued audience. It is with immense pleasure and a warm heart that I extend a hearty welcome to all of you to the 9th session of the Faculty Development Program organized by the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, in collaboration with Emerald Publishing. First and foremost, I extend a warm welcome to Professor Payal, Dean, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Next, I bid a warm welcome to our esteemed resource persons of the today's session, Professor Payal Kumar, Principal Academic Advisor, Indian School of Hospitality, India. With the gratitude, let me welcome Professor M.S.M. Aslam, Chairman of the Research and Publication Unit, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. With great respect, let me also welcome Professor Jayanthan Devasiri, the chairperson of this Faculty Development Program, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. With gratitude, I would like to warmly welcome Ms. Sangeeta Menon, chairperson of the Faculty Development Program, and also Ms. Sadisha Laknapal, the chief organizer of the Faculty Development Program, Emerald Publishing. Further, let me welcome Ms. Shanika Ratnasiri, Secretary of the Faculty Development Program, and Ms. Kaushalya Roandika, the Coordinating Secretary of the Faculty Development Program. In addition, I would also like to extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished participants from Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka and Emerald Publishing. Your presence here reflects your commitment to the pursuit of knowledge and continuous learning. In addition to our distinguished guests, we are equally delighted to have our valued participants, mainly academics, researchers, coming together from various corners of the world to share insight, exchange ideas, and collectively contribute to the advancement of our field. Once again, a warm welcome to you all. So before proceeding today's session themed Art of Publishing an Academic Book, let me introduce our esteemed resource person of session 9, Professor Payal Kumar, to the valued audience. Professor Payal Kumar is a Principal Academic Supervisor at Indian School of Hospitality, India. She completed her Masters of Art from the School of Oriental and African Studies, UK, and Fellow Program from XLRI, India. Professor Kumar is the editorial board member of several prestigious international journals and is also Emerald Brand Ambassador. She has published extensively, including 17 books with Palgrove Macmillan, Springler, and Emerald Publishing, including a book series too. She is a prize-winning researcher with accolades, including Best Symposium Prize presented at the Academy of Management Conference, Seattle 2022. She has so far conducted workshops on academic writing for over 4,000 scholars and 1,000 professors at top institutions in India. In an earlier avatar, Payal was Vice President of Editorial and Production, Sage Publishing Limited. Dear ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for this warm welcome. I do appreciate it. And thank you to the organizers, the Sabaragamuwa University in Sri Lanka, and to Emerald Publishing for organizing this webinar. So I'm just going to show my screen now, and I hope my PPT is visible. If somebody could let me know.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we can off we go. So welcome to everybody, and so there's so many seminars, webinars on how to publish in journals. And I mean, I conduct a lot and I attend a lot as well, but this one is a little bit different. And this is about how to publish an academic book. So when I say academic book, I'm talking of various things. I'm talking of a monograph. Monograph means one or two authors write it from cover to cover. And I'm also talking about edited books, which I'll explain in more detail. These are a few of my books, 18 up to now, in fact, and working on another 5 and working on handbooks and all sorts of stuff. So I think that, I was in publishing myself. I was Vice President Editorial and Publishing in Sage Publications. Sage is the well-known social science publisher. So I think that's helped me grasp, so I obviously understand what a publisher requires. And then having done my doctoral at a later stage in life, I understand what the academic world requires. So I'm wedding these two experiences together, and hopefully this will be useful to the audience. So why should we publish? Obviously, you need to publish to add to scientific knowledge, and also for your career progression. You get promotions based on whatever publications you've done. Very often, unfortunately, in some countries like India, book publications don't get too much credence. Journal publications, your A grade and your FT50s, they get a lot more credence. But obviously, as with journals, your work has to be new, original, and it has to add and advance to the existing knowledge in the field. So I personally feel, I've published a lot in journals. I've got a FT50 journal paper as well, but I personally feel that books can be so important. They're gonna be around even when we're not around. Okay, so we may remember some journal articles, but we definitely, I feel, have a much longer memory for books. So I'd just like you to put into the chat box, is there any book that has been life-defining for you? Any book that has, been really, really amazing, life-defining? It's changed the way you think, it's zapped you. If you could mention in the chat box, I'd appreciate it.
I'm having a look at the questions on the chat. Please write your answers in the questions tab, because I will be able to see them and I can let Professor know your answers.
So any book which has been life-defining, it could be, Martin Luther King, or great thinkers that we've been reading, Mahatma Gandhi or Vivekananda, or I don't know, there's so many life-defining books, right? One book that I found very, very, mind-blowing was written by a lady called Beth Cypre, and the book is called I Am Not Your Victim. And it was the horrifying story, true life story of domestic abuse at another level, like her husband would break her bones on a regular basis, and all that she went through, the trauma and how she survived. And she actually, in the end, had to kill him for self-defense. He was actually going to kill her. And her therapist had asked her to write down her experiences as a form of therapy, not for publishing a book or something. But eventually it got published as a book, and it's absolutely, mind-blowing how much misery somebody can inflict on another. Do we have any other answers?
Yes, we do. Someone has written The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and Good to Great. Another person has written Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And a few more. Yeah. Franklin, and a few more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Man's Search for Meaning, he was in the concentration camp, and he started noticing that, the tall and hefty guys who were put through a lot of physical labor, they seemed to be dying more than very weak, seemingly physically weak men in the Nazi concentration camp, and he couldn't understand why. And, he finally came to the answer that it's those that had a meaning in their life, like, they wanted to get back to their wife, or they were in the middle of a research project that they had to finish, that gave them meaning, and that gave them strength and resilience to survive. So very, very interesting book to read, definitely. So I'm going back to the slides now. Yeah, so I feel writing books is very important because it can be life-defining, and it stays, much longer, for a much longer time. The second reason about books, which is quite interesting, is that unlike what most people may think, that some of them are actually very, very highly cited. Look at this one. Highly cited. So this is Miles and Huberman, Qualitative Data Analysis. Everybody reads this book and cites it if you're a qualitative researcher. Look at this one. Carl Wake, if you do any research on sense making and sense giving, obviously go to Carl Wake. Hofstede, all the cultural dimensions, very, very highly cited. So you can see here, it's not just journals, that are cited. Books, if you come up with some new way of thinking, definitely it can be an amazing academic contribution. You also need to make sure as an author that your books are not boring. You don't want people to fall asleep when they're reading them, yeah? So I'm going to go through now. What do we mean by academic book publishing? A peek into the process for an edited book. First, I'm going to talk about edited books. So an edited book is I do an edited book about every 8-9 months. So it's you come up with a theme and a literature gap, and then once it passes peer review, then you put out a call for papers globally, hopefully, and you get people to write relevant chapters. So you might write chapter 1, for example, but other people will be writing this. And say 13 to 15 chapters on that particular area which you have conceptualized. That's an edited book. And a monograph, as I have said, is something you write from cover to cover. So in an edited book, there could be more than one volume editor, and in a monograph also, there could be more than one editor or single author, whatever is required. So as in a journal, it's a little bit similar in terms of identifying a research gap. So you choose your topic, preferably something that really interests you. Then you identify keywords, discuss with your peers and seniors, search keywords on a database. Apart from looking at Google Scholar and EBSCO, also look at Google Books. There is a Google Books site. So say you want to do some, book on sustainability and development, go onto there and search, and you might already find a lot of books that are in existence. So what new information are you bringing? Why should a publisher publish your book? Okay. Then obviously you need to screen the literature that's existing, screen abstracts, screen books, screen full text, and start looking at the literature in detail to say that this is what scholars have said earlier, and I believe we can build upon this with this gap, after identifying the gap. So it's very similar to journal gap identification. And you need to ask yourself these questions before you write a book. It's like, why are you doing a book? I mean, is it something that's very new and interesting, like we saw Hofstede or Carl Wake? It was a very new and interesting topic, not really touched before. Is it a hot topic? So a lot of books are coming out on AI now, obviously. Have you provided solutions for a difficult problem? And are you adding to existing book publications? So if you say yes to all of these, then possibly you should go ahead. But out of all these questions, which one do you think is the most important for a publisher? If you could write in the chat box, out of these questions that I've put up on the board, the 4 bullet points, which do you think is the most important for a publisher? Disha, if you could let me know if anybody answers this.
Definitely.
Which is the most important question for a book publisher? Publisher could be Emerald, could be Palgrave Macmillan, could be Springer, could be Rupa, HarperCollins. There's so many publishers out there. You can guess also. Just try and make a guess.
Yeah, it's you can just put bullet point 1, 2, or 3, 4. We've got 4. Even writing the number of the bullet point would do. You don't need to write the entire thing. Happy. Yes. Someone says new and interesting. Someone talks about providing solutions to difficult problems. We've got someone saying waiting for more people to respond, but mostly we've come up with new and interesting, and it's between 1 and option 3.
Okay, so it's actually the 4th one. Are you adding to existing book publications? In other words, a publisher looks at, will the book sell? Topmost in their mind, right? We actually, as a publisher, we look at the P&L in the beginning, the profit and loss statement. Will this book sell? And to see, because it's a business, right? And to see if it sells, you have to look at, is it adding to existing book publications? So there could be 100 books on AI. What is are you adding some new dimension which has not really been covered before? Will the book sell? Will people put money and buy it? That is what is uppermost in the mind of a publisher. So that may help you come up with your book publishing concept note if you keep that at the top of your mind. Yeah. So when we talk about the structure of a book, an edited book usually has a title page. You could put in a dedication if you want to dedicate it to somebody. Forward, you could get some good, academic to write a forward. You'd write the preface yourself, like, why are you doing this book? If you want, you can have acknowledgements, to thank certain people. And then, you write about the book. Was it based on a conference? And then there's a table of contents, like maybe there could be 3-4 themes in an edited book. And then in each theme, there are certain chapters. There is also some pages about the authors for authored books, monographs. And if it's an edited book, there is details about each contributor in detail, say about 150, 200 words. In a book, you also have a list of abbreviations, and then you have a list of figures and tables. A lot of this is in the what we call the preliminary pages in the beginning of the book. Yeah, so it's different in the way a journal is structured. Now let's go to a monograph, which is, you write the book cover to cover. Here you need to have, again, a clear, useful, and exciting scientific message. About 95% of doctoral theses are rejected by book publishers because they're very technical, right? A thesis can really only be understood by you, maybe your thesis advisory committee, and a few other people are going to read it. But it's such a technical volume, piece of work that you've worked on for years. So, to actually get it converted into a book, if that's your intention, it requires a lot of things, to be simplified, to cut out maybe diagrams, figures, or maybe put them in the appendix. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The end has to link up with the introduction. It has to be like a cyclical. You may have to add more literature. You may have to add a little bit more relevant data, up-to-date data, because the thesis could have taken 5 years. Maybe your data points are a little bit old. It has to flow in a logical manner, and it has to transmit the language clearly. It has to be written in a more simplistic manner, for a wider readership. So, don't automatically think your thesis is going to be converted into the book, because chances are it will not. It has to be rewritten in a particular manner. So I'm taking this screenshot from Emerald, which is quite nicely done, from proposal to publication. So, you first submit, there is a proposal form. Every publisher has a proposal form that you have to fill in. It's quite a long one. So you type out all the details, you submit your proposal, and then there's an internal review. They'll see, does this actually fit into our publishing aims and scope? Does it fit? I mean, say you're sending it to a social science publisher and you've written a book on physics, so that's not going to fit, right? So there's an internal review, then they send it to external reviewers to review in greater detail. I mean, I do external reviews of books for Emerald and other publishers. Finally, if it is agreed upon that this is going to be a good book, then there'll be a manuscript submission. You submit the full manuscript, and then there's a contract. There will be a contract with terms about royalty and manuscript delivery date, which is pretty much sacrosanct. So better, if you think it's going to take 1 year, better to give a 1 year, 3 months estimate to the publisher, because, you don't want to mess their publishing processes and pipeline. You have to give a response to reviewers, then it goes into production. There's some typesetting and indexing and cover. The cover is also made by the publisher. And finally, they'll be doing sales and marketing. And finally, there should be publication, and you as the author would be getting a certain amount of complimentary copies. So that is the process of book publishing. If you have questions, you can free to put them in the chat, and then Disha will relay them to me. Yeah. So regarding, again, edited volumes, once it has gone through peer review and a contract has been signed, then you can send out a call for chapters, not call for papers. You can post this on various groups, various listservs, and even on social media, university website. Decide whether you want to be the sole editor or you want to do this with other book editors. I often do this, my work, with other volume editors around the world, global editors. I think it gives it a far greater reach, but that's really your call. So I've spoken about edited books. I've spoken about monograph. I'm now going to speak about book series, which is a little bit more complex. than a single book volume. So I did a 5-part series with Palgrave Macmillan, Leadership and Followership. This had 5 volumes. One of the volumes, which was on servant leadership, received a 16,000 chapter download, so I think it did pretty well. So here again, you have a form that has to be filled in. The publisher will send you, and a little bit different rationale. You have to explain why you're doing a series, first of all, right? So you'll be asked questions like outline the rationale, aims, objectives, scope, and provide as much details as possible. Again, you'll be asked, please provide information on the book projects, authors. So in this particular series, I worked with 5 volume editors around the world, different countries, who came up with different themes under this large umbrella of leadership and followership. And why are we doing this? Because there's so many books on leadership, but you can't have a leader without a follower. And this is the kind of an understudied area. So this particular series went through 5 peer reviewers. I mean, even I was quite surprised. A book usually goes through maybe 2 or 3, but this one went through 5 peer reviewers. I was very happy that one of the leading scholars in the world on followership, Mary Albine, she was one of the reviewers, and she gave some excellent points, and she really liked the series and said it's quite cutting edge. She used that word several times in the review. So I just got a small revision that I had to do, small R&R, and then I submitted it, and then we started getting the books out one by one. Series typically takes, maybe a series of 5 books would typically take 3 to 4 years. I'm working on another series at the moment on sustainability and development with 7 volume editors around the world. I mean, 7 leading volume editors, there's others as well. And this I project would be possibly a 4-year project. So literature gap, this is what I wrote in the proposal. So I'm sharing it with the audience. This series fulfills a significant gap in the literature, consists of 6 volumes. We came down to 5 in the end, lucidly written chapters of academic rigor, showcasing the work of about 50 scholars and 20 practitioners from all over the world. It should be an excellent reference text for scholars and leaders who want to study the follower-centric perspective of leadership. And it is envisaged that the series will not only evaluate the domain, but will add to existing scholarship by providing greater conceptual clarity. So, you don't just look at past literature and talk about it. Obviously, you have to come up with new chapters, new thoughts. And that's something that volumes can do. You can push boundaries. Yeah. Keep writing your questions in the chat box. Disha, do we have any so far?
Yes, we do. We have 2. So the first question someone has asked is, what special care should be taken while publishing an ebook instead of a print book?
When publishing ebook, okay. So when you sign a contract, many publishers will say sign an ebook and a print copy, or one or the other. So it depends which publisher you're working with. There's nothing you have to consider in particular, because even in a print book these days, you have to come up with keywords and all that kind of thing. So in an edited book, every chapter we have keywords, right, for searchability. As a writer, I don't think there's anything in particular that you have to take care of. I hope that answers your question. Or was there something more specific that was troubling you? You could maybe put it in the chat box.
Just they wanted to know if there's anything special that needs to be taken care of.
It's just a different format.
Yeah.
Manuscript is the same, it's just the format is different, yeah?
Right.
And what's the other question, Disha?
The other question is, how many complimentary copies do you get as an author?
That depends on the publisher, and it depends how well you negotiate with them. So an old-timer like me, since I've published so many books, I know the publishers, I might get a few more than you. But typically, edited volume, you'd maybe get 3 or 4, for the volume editors. And many publishers, they'll give a complimentary copy, 1 copy to each chapter writer, the first author. But you also get some concession as an author/editor. You could get up to 40%, concession if you want to purchase any books from that publisher. I hope that answers
Yeah,
that.
I think it's all about negotiations, all about having a talk and not
Absolutely.
accepting everything on first go. Yeah, these are the only two questions so far.
Okay, so keep sending in your questions, any doubts you may have. So I've spoken about edited books, I've spoken about monographs, I've spoken about series, and now I'm working on a handbook, which is like, not exactly like an encyclopedia, but I mean, encyclopedia has shorter entries which are alphabetical. A handbook is in more depth, you could say. So we're working with world scientific publishers, and my co-editor is Professor Pavan Budwar, who's very well known at Aston University. And our mentor is Professor Gideon Markman, editor of Academy of Management Perspectives. So we're doing 5 volumes, again, working with this. Each handbook, each volume is much larger than, say, the volume of a series. Okay, I mean, it's almost double, more than double the size. Each volume would be more than double the size. And it consists of cutting edge research. Okay, so again, you're not only telling scholars what's happened in the past, what is the literature, but a lot of guideposts, about theoretical boundaries which can be pushed. You look at contemporary challenges. So in this one, we're doing this on DEI and diversity inclusion, equity and inclusion. So we're hoping it'll be a reference work for scholars and also act as a guide for leaders to navigate complexity of D&I in nebulous work environments. So, when you're doing a PhD, the first thing you should look at are handbooks. So my PhD was on mentoring. So the very first thing I did was read the 6 handbooks. If you want to read cover to cover, at least skim through and looked at what are the chapters, who are the authors writing it, and what areas are they looking at. It kind of gives you a very broad vision of this is the literature in the past, this is what people are currently working on, and this is what people are thinking of working on future studies. So I think the very first thing doctoral scholars should do is read handbooks. It's like a reference, a very good reference. So this is something we're working on at the moment, and I'm quite excited about this. This will be about a 5-year project, I would imagine. Okay, so that's enough of that. Now let's talk about how to crack the peer review process. As I told you, there's an internal validation and then an external validation. And basically, peer reviewers, they're looking at how does your proposal differ from other books? Because if you remember, for the publisher, the most upper thing in the mind is, will the book sell? It'll only sell if it's differentiated from other books, isn't it? If you're adding something of value, something really new, some different angle, a different lens. So you'll be asked questions like, what are the main ideas within this work? So this is a review I did for a book, and you can read it yourself. I'll just give you a minute to read all these questions and what I wrote as a reviewer. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna get my charger. So if you can just read this slide, please. Okay, so you can see that there is merit in this particular, review. It seems that there are chances of publication happening, yeah? Now, we're talking about peer review. So one thing you need to avoid is replication studies. So you can't sort of say in a book publishing form that, so this piece of work has been studied in, in Northern Hemisphere, and I'm just copy pasting it and, looking at the South Asian story. So while that may have some kind of merit, but there needs to be something else to be added, not just simply a copy paste of something which has already been published. So try and avoid replication studies. Here is the reason for a rejection of a book. So despite the author's really admirable efforts, the editorial board are concerned that the project is too single case study specific for our list strategy. So this is an author I know. She did a in-depth case study on one particular leader in one particular company over the COVID period. It was a good study, but they said it's a single case study. They wanted it to be broader. for the purposes of a book. It could have been accepted in a journal perhaps, but for a book they wanted it broader. So you can just read this little cartoon. So you know how journals and books takes a long, long time, isn't it? The publishing process and the publishing pipeline. Here's another one. So we seem to take our work everywhere with us, isn't it? Even on vacations. Keep adding your questions into the chat box as we go along. So we've looked at different types of academic books. We've looked at what do peer reviewers look at, what you should avoid, what you should be careful about. Now just a little bit about ethics. So plagiarism, obviously there's several different forms of plagiarism. Be careful, you need to cite other works. There's something called self-plagiarism. So if you've done a book earlier, and you must cite yourself as well. Don't just, otherwise if you don't cite yourself, it looks like a new idea that you come up with. Don't submit your manuscript to more than one publisher at the same time. Similarly as with the journals. Of course, lack of acknowledgement of prior research and research is regarded as plagiarism. So you need to be careful about all this as you go along. So, I mean, what is a citation? I think we all know that in the audience. You give credit for somebody else's work. And so you need to give a citation in the text. This applies to your academic books as well. So you could say, something, 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 in brackets, Smith, 2001. And then at the end, you could have a reference section. And in a book, you can also have what is called a bibliography. So that's different to a journal. So in a journal, say, for example, you have 100 citations, you need 100 references. But in a book, you can also have added reading material, bibliography. That's not there to show off that you've read a lot. That's there, the specific reading material that you feel will be useful to the audience, to the readership. Yeah. So that's one major difference between books and journals. Copyright issues, publishers are very particular about this. You may reach the end, you may have submitted the manuscript, gone through peer review, done some editing, everything got it seemingly perfect, and you don't have the right copyright material there, and publishers won't publish. So if you've sourced a table, map, figure from other publications, you need to write to them and ask for copyright permission, or just avoid them. Okay, you need to have copyright permission for these type of things. And as I've told you, I mean, as a publisher myself, I have stopped things from going into print until we had the copyright permission in a legal manner. And each author says an edited volume, they have to sign off that this is their original work and they've not published it anywhere as well. So we start off our manuscripts usually like this, the car at the top, and by the peer reviewers, we kind of end up like this, isn't it? Strange manuscript in the end, which may have gone through a tremendous amount of modification. Little quiz. So just have a look at these questions, and in the next slide, I'll give you the answers. So a citation is a way of giving credit to someone's work. Just have a read of this, and I'll think in your mind what could be the right answer. Research gap is easy to find. Books are rarely cited. Publisher's name is essential information in a book. In a book reference, publisher's name is essential. I'm just going to go on to the next slide with the answers. So a citation is a way of giving credit to somebody's work, true. Missing citation is equivalent of plagiarism, yes. You can send your book to two publishers at the same time, no, absolutely no. Research gap is easy to find, no. And it's getting more and more difficult because there's thousands of PhD scholars all over the world, and research gaps are getting pretty much filled up. So when I started my PhD, negative mentoring experiences of the protege was a very rare subject. Not much work had been done on it, but now there's so many, references that I can quote. Books are rarely cited. No, not at all. Some of them, leaders in the field are constantly cited, constantly cited. And the publisher's name is essential information in a book reference. Yes, not just the publisher's name, but the place as well. So if it's a book, say, Sage Publications, you have to mention, is it the London office, the Indian office, or the Singapore or US, Californian office. Okay, over to the audience. Or Disha, if you have any questions.
Yes, yes, most definitely. So the person who had mentioned about the complimentary copies has written that this really helps me because I thought that the publishers might give us anywhere between 100 to 50 complimentary copies as an author.
Oh, no. Books are
Yeah.
a cost, right? Books are a cost. You just get a few, print and ebooks. But the point is that you can then buy further copies at some sort of concessionary rate for the author slash editor. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm picking up a question, something that you just spoken about right now, a few seconds back. This is on any book, we find plenty of work. How do you drill down on the research gap?
Yes, so it's very difficult. It's as difficult as finding a research gap for a journal. So that was my one of my first slides, if you remember. So this is the way to do it, isn't it? I'm just going there again. This one. So I would suggest, first of all, read handbooks in the area. Not read cover to cover. You can, as I said, read some, skim through, but look at the chapters. What has been covered, right? In the handbook it gives a bird's eye view of the area. Then start narrowing your scope, something that you're finding interesting that you think has not been. So mine was negative mentoring experiences of the protege. So look at keywords and put the keywords not only in Google Scholar and EBSCO, but in Google Books. There is a website called Google Books. So there it'll come up with a lot of books are already existing. And if they're existing and you're planning to do the same thing, don't bother because it probably won't get published. Yeah. So you have to come up with some new insights, new material, new angle. Okay. Then you have to read a lot. Obviously, you have to read journal papers, you have to read the books out there, you have to read handbooks until you eventually come up with a literature gap. And that literature gap will then be written in that book proposal form. That I feel this book is going to sell because we're coming up with this new knowledge and this has not really been covered before, or it has been covered but not extensively. You can mention a book that has covered it to some extent, but you're going, some other tangent, and that's the kind of thing that publishers look for. It's a lot of work, basically. You have to know the literature.
Yeah, I think any sort of publication is a lot of work. It really is important to drill down on exactly what you are trying to share with the audience. The next question that we have is, sorry, just one second. They say that these days, self-publishers, the concept is getting very, very big rush. However, don't we get any due credit as a faculty member who publishes with self-publisher?
No, don't go there. No, I mean, unless it's something you've written a story about your family or something that you just want to get published, it's a personal thing, of course, go ahead. But if you're talking of an academic credibility, there's no credibility because it's self-publishing, isn't it? It's not been through a double-blind peer review. And as I told you in one of my series, I had 5 reviewers who went through that. So they obviously would have seen something, academically relevant for the publisher, for academics out there to buy, because series usually are bought by libraries, around the world. That's why they're priced higher. Handbooks, book series, even edited volumes. It's not usually an individual subscriber, right? So it's bought by the library of a university and it could be read by many people in that university. So for academic readers, it has to go through that double-blind review process. And so self-publishing doesn't have that, right? Anybody can publish anything. I'm not saying don't go there. Like if you have some personal thing you want to, publish, carry on. But Academic credibility is not there. I hope
Yeah,
that's answered your question.
yeah, they've mentioned Amazon has KDP, direct publishing.
Again, it's like self-publishing. It's not just Amazon. There's so many out there. There's so many, right? Anybody can publish anything,
Yeah.
virtually. Yeah.
So it's all about having a factually checked book, then someone can use as a
Yes,
reference.
yes. So
And
if
when
I'm sent
you
a
have,
review by Emerald, I'm sent book reviews to look at, as a reviewer, I'm sent books to look at. So I will go through the manuscript, I'll go through the proposal form, and I will then do my own search. I will go through literature to see, are they correct? Is it actually adding to new knowledge? Okay, so that's why the publisher doesn't take a call. The publisher are not academics. They will take an internal call. Does this book fit into our purview? As I said, if it's a social science publisher, somebody sends a manuscript on chemistry, obviously that's not going to fit, right? So publisher just looks at that. If they're happy, it's a good fit, and they feel, okay, there's some merit in this, then they send it to the experts, which are academics. Academics will drill down and see, is the claim correct? Is this actually adding to new knowledge? I've turned down books where they claim something, but it's really not adding anything. It's just a kind of regurgitation of what's gone on before. So that kind of book proposal will be rejected. Yeah.
yeah. And also, what I was about to say is when a reviewer sends you an idea, it can make your work at the end much more stronger than where it started as well. Because I think that adds, because when you look at something, you're looking at, with your view. But when externally it's being looked at, I think
Absolutely.
someone can give you a view which is very different, or it sets a tone for the book that might be different. So I think that really does
Yeah,
help.
that's a very beautiful point, Disha. So I can give you an example. I've just done a review of a book, and it was something to do with AI, and it was all it was divided into 4 themes, that particular book, and everything was about the hunky-dory story that, AI is brilliant and this and that, and the world is changing. And then I wrote to them and said, okay, there's merit in this, but you need to add the darker side of AI. This is not the full picture. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So again, like a journal, we can reject outright, accept outright, which is very rare, a minor revision or a major revision. Similarly, as with the journal. Yeah, so this was a minor revision. Like I said, I think I would recommend publication, but the dark side of this phenomena has to be added to give a complete picture.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is, it's broken into parts. Because they're talking about the same thing, but the first question they have put is that if we are acknowledging the source of the image or the data, then do we still need to copyright permission?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. You can't
That's
just
the
have
first.
it. You have to get copyright permission. Things don't go into print if the copyright permission is not there. So I would suggest don't take things which are not absolutely necessary. If you're just taking a picture just for the heck of it, or even a table from somebody else's published work, you need copyright permission, and you need to be very specific. So say there's a table which has 3 columns, you've added a 4th column. Even after permission, you'd have to write at the bottom, source, from so-and-so's book or journal, and the last column has been added by me as the author. If it's your own table, then you put at the bottom, you always have to write a source. You put the source, author's own. You need to make very clear that where are your sources, where are you getting your tables, figures, maps from. At the end of every such thing, you have to write source. Is it author's own or is it something else? But yes, you still have to have copyright permission. Sorry. That's what it is.
I'll read the second part of the question. I think you've already answered it. Feel free to ignore it in case you feel that you've completed the answer, because they said that under which circumstances do we certainly need to take copyright permission, and when is it okay to just acknowledge the source? Please clarify.
No, so anything published which you're using in your book, you have to take copyright permission. Book, I beg your pardon, whether it's a table, figure, graph, map, you have to take copyright permission because it's already been published. So you don't have rights on that. Yeah?
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. But if you, I mean, there is a way out. If you modify it to quite some extent, then perhaps you could put, so and so, modify it from so and so. Then the publisher may accept that, although that's a bit risky. But yeah, that's one way out, I guess.
Right. We have another question, and if we do get a follow-up question from that person, I'll read it out for you. The next question is, please show some highlight or how to create novelty through literature gap.
How to have novelty through literature gap? So as
Yeah.
I've mentioned that, you have to do a lot of reading yourself and drill down and find a gap as you would for a journal paper. That's how we're trained in our PhD, isn't it? So let me take my thesis area because obviously I know that the best. So I would start off by saying, okay, so a lot of scholars have already published about mentoring. Some scholars have looked at, positive outcome variables for the mentor, and then I put in string citations, so-and-so scholars. Some have looked at positive outcome variables for the firm, string citations. Some have looked at positive outcome variables for the protege, string citations. Very few scholars have looked at negative outcome variables. I mean, like mentoring is assumed to be a good thing, right? A few scholars have started on this. Then again, you give some few names, what angles they're looking at. So you're doing that inverted pyramid style, right? You're drilling down. I feel, that, I mean, you don't say I, but there seems to be, this area is not covered too much. And within this area, this particular angle of the protege's perspective has really not been covered at all. So this is something this book really wants to look at. So that's how you have to justify your gap. And your gap doesn't just have to be justified, it has to be interesting. You may find a literature gap, but is somebody going to buy the book? Again, keep thinking how the publisher thinks. Is somebody going to buy the book? They want several people to buy it, right? Or several libraries to buy it. So you have to find a gap, explain it well, and make sure it's interesting. That's why I put that image up there of these people who look very bored, some students who look very bored. You don't want that, right, from your readership?
So I recently read there are more questions, but I recently read a book where they were talking about game theory and through Lego and other things. But the entire book was made like a comic. They were explaining game theory
Lovely.
using it's actually written in the form of a comic, like you're reading a comic book. So it was very interesting.
Different format,
And the visuals were beautiful, and how they had actually, brought characters talking about the things that they want to teach. So for me, beautiful book.
That's
Beautiful
lovely.
book.
So the publisher would have relished that, oh my God, this is really going to sell. Difficult concepts explained in an easy way. Which publisher wouldn't want that, right? The other thing is, nobody's asked me, but I don't know if anybody's interested in textbooks. So textbooks are written by faculty who are specialists in that area. It's a different ball game. Each chapter is written in great depth, and then you end up with question answers at the back, and little case studies and all sorts of things. And a few publishers do, encourage textbooks. But I've actually met a lot of faculty in India who go in for textbooks because they feel, excuse me, they don't have the right textbook for their class. They take some chapters from one textbook, some chapters from another, then they have an Indian context, they don't want to take all Western case studies. So they've ended up writing a textbook simply because they want to roll that out in their class instead of, having multiple sources. So that's also something that if faculty are interested, they could look at, assuming that they're really experts in their field and they could come up with a thorough textbook.
Wonderful. The next question, even I want to know the answer for this. How do international rights and translations factor into the publishing process for authors seeking to reach a global audience?
No, so that's very often the decision of the publisher. you know, a publisher could contact you at some time. I know a publisher who contacted an author who had a published book, and then suddenly, you know, it was published, and a few months later they said, "We want to publish this in Italian. You know, can you give us permission?" And I think there's some kind of royalty involved or whatever. I mean, because they're the ones who find the gap that, okay, this language, people who speak this language really want this book. It's not really the decision of the author as such.
Yeah,
As far as I'm
because
aware, I don't know, Disha, you may
yeah,
want to add something.
that's why, because I am also thinking the same thing, because I didn't know, because English is what is used for teaching in most places
Mm.
until unless, it's like a very strictly like a French
The lingua franca,
based.
yeah, correct.
Exactly. So where these are, so hoping to see. Uh, but yeah, that's why I said I'm also looking forward to what answer you give, because I wasn't sure about
So it's
translation.
usually the call of the publisher. So the
Right.
publisher is able to tell if I keep honing in on the book sale. So if they feel that they suddenly start getting requests for the book from,
Yeah.
you know, Spanish speaking readers, potential readers, then they may want to convert
Able
that
to.
into Spanish or French or whatever it is, yeah?
Yeah, if you're able to bring that kind of requests with you as well as an author, you say this is a community I've been hearing, I know
Absolutely,
more people,
absolutely.
why don't we have a conversation? It's about, I think a publisher is always open to any sort of questions. If you ask them that I think this book will do good in this market, if I get you like evidence, would you take it forward? I think every publisher will. So it's about how it's negotiation, conversation, how you can tell the publisher that yes, this book is worth investing in, please look at this opportunity. I'm sure whether it comes from the author or whether they see that it's good enough, they will take it forward for sure. At least they'll
You're
make the book.
absolutely right, Disha. And in fact, I could add something to that. So, say, for example, your 3 volume editors, you want to do an edited volume. You could write in your proposal form that we plan to go for this conference and we would like 500 buybacks. I'm just
Yeah,
giving as an example. We would want 3 of us to buy 500 of the books because we want to distribute in this conference. You know, you could negotiate maybe even more of a deal, concession, but publishers will be very interested. I mean, of course, you still have to have the literature gap and the novelty and, you know, adding to scientific knowledge. That has to be there. But if you do mention buybacks, then that's definitely going to add weightage to your proposal.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
right. Conversations can
yeah,
keep flowing. Absolutely right.
yeah. I'm sifting through a lot of comments. People have said the session has been wonderful. They're very, very
So
thankful
sweet.
for everything that you shared today. Some of
Mm.
them are asking for slides, recordings, for everybody asking for slides. And just letting you know that the recordings are going to be shared with you in 24 hours. This video has been uploaded on YouTube for everybody to look at as well. So there are multiple ways to, refer back to this. And I think Professor Kumar can share whether she'll be able to share the PPT with us or not.
I'm absolutely delighted to share the slides. I'm not one of those people who copyright the, you know, work. I think
Yeah,
it's our duty, you know, to just disseminate knowledge as far as possible. Why not? I mean, I have guided so many authors to publish books. I can't even tell you. And once they publish one book, then of course they don't need my guidance. But just getting them off onto the initial stages, I do help people in filling in that proposal form, and it gives me great joy, you know, when I find out that their books have been published. So I have examples of three examples in the last year. Here I'm just blowing my trumpet for a bit, guys. So last year, 3 examples of one is this corporate leader who wrote a book on mindfulness and it was not getting published, and I introduced her to the right publisher and it got published, and now she's doing, you know, book events all over the world. It's doing really well. Another was a book of a CEO, and you know, I knew that this manuscript was going to be a really good book, but publishers kept turning him down, and I worked with him for 6 years, and eventually we got it published, and now it's winning all sorts of awards, you know. And the third one, which I'm very proud of, is a very well-known professor at the higher level in one of the good universities in India, who's already published lots of books, but this book was a little bit on a personal angle. And so, you know, publishers were not so sure and this and that. But again, managed to get him the right publisher, helped him redraft the manuscript a bit, and it's going into print. So I'm very happy about these things. If I'm able to help anybody at all, I mean, sharing slides is really not a big deal. happy to do that. And I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm quite active on social media. If you want to reach out to me, ask further questions on my email, I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll pick up one last question. They
Mhm.
are talking about kindly display books that indicate the highest citations. Do you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
any
sure,
books at the
sure.
top of your head?
So this one, as I mentioned, Miles and Huberman, PhD students who are doing qualitative research, they always buy this and cite this. It's very highly cited. Carl Wake, again, very highly cited, and G. Hofstede. I mean, these are just a few that I picked up on Google Scholar, but there's a lot more. So if you start off a new field, a new area, that's what I find very exciting about books. Personally, why I really enjoy books is that, with journals, we are trained as researchers to go very deep into maybe one or two very specific areas. Nothing wrong with that. That's one way of working. But I like flitting, from one flower to the other kind of thing as a bee, so I find a literature gap in one area. So I've done books all over, leadership, followership, women entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, um, gender equity in the boardroom. I mean, so many different subject areas because I like finding literature gaps, working on it, producing a book, and then going on to another area. That's what I find very beautiful about books. I have an intensely curious mind, and it helps me sort out a lot of stuff in my own mind, and hopefully the readership's mind too. And yeah, if you're good with your work, you get highly cited. So that's
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Kumar. Wonderful session. Always great hearing from you, hearing your sessions. We've done a few in the past, and thank you to all the audiences for their questions as well. Just one moment.
Go ahead. One more question.
No. Questions are done.
Okay. So
Yeah,
thank you.
just
I appreciate it. You have a
just
question, Disha?
no. I don't have.
Okay.
I don't have a question, but definitely inviting Ms. Timutu back for a vote of thanks for everyone. Just one.
Okay, great. No,
Yeah.
thank you again. Thank you again for inviting me. And if it's been useful to anybody at all, then my day is done. I mean, I'm very happy about that. Thank you.
I can share the thank you. I can share the thank you messages with you, Professor Kumar, because
So
there are
sweet.
so many
I'd
people
appreciate that. I'd
who
appreciate that. That'll
definitely
make my
who
day.
mentioned back. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Disha. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening again to the distinguished guests and respective participants. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, in collaboration with Emerald Publishing for the successful completion of the 9th session of the Faculty Development Program 2023. First and foremost, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the main speaker of the session, Professor Payal Kumar, Principal Academic Supervisor, Indian School of Hospitality, India. Ma'am, it was truly an inspiring and enlightening session regarding publishing a book. At the
Thank
outset,
you.
I would like to express my profound gratitude to the Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, headed by Professor Athuranjanapala. Further, I would like to express my special gratitude to Professor M.S.M. Aslam, Chairman, Research and Publication Unit, and all other members of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies for their unconditional support. I would also like to express our sense of obligations to Professor Janathan Devasiri, Chairperson for the Faculty Development Program, whose visionary approach and dedication played a pivotal role in initiating this program. A special word of thanks goes to Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Chairperson for the FDP, and also Ms. Disha Lakanpal, Chief Organizer of the Faculty Development Program. My deepest gratitude goes to the organizing committee, particularly to Ms. Shanika Ratnasiri, Program Secretary, and also Ms. Kaushalyani Rwandika, Coordinating Secretary, who meticulously planned and executed every aspect of this faculty development program. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the audience, including all the academics, researchers, industry participants, and also research students. Hope you all will join for the Faculty Development Program Session 10 on how to achieve competitive advantages for a top-tier publication. Thank you all again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're
Thank you so
welcome,
much,
ma'am.
everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.